Our guest is Metro Vice Mayor Jim Shulman. Always good to have him on. Metro Council meeting tonight. Of course, he'll be there. It's going to be a long meeting.
Well, it's 47 pages long in the calendar. There's 100+ bills or resolutions, and it's a public hearing night. So we have some public hearing stuff going on. I would guess that we'll be there after midnight, unless some of these things get deferred.
Right.
Now, obviously, we talked about the stadium, the resolution and the bill coming up. That animal bill, which you've got in front of you.
Let's get to that in a second. Eric's on the line. He called through. He may want to talk about stadium real quick, and then we'll get to that animal bill, too. Let's go to Eric. Eric, good morning. How are you, Eric?
Well, actually, Nick, I was going to talk about something else downtown. But first of all, you know, I will probably talk to you again before it gets here. But I just wanted to wish the Vice Mayor and his family a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same to you. Same to you and yours.
Yeah, thank you. Just my thing is what's going on, I guess, is at Bridgestone Arena with the water pipes bursting and everything. Yeah. Of course, you had a couple of Predators games that were canceled. That happened during Thanksgiving weekend, and I'm sure they're still working on that. They said, I've heard it's going to take a while. And, of course, you wouldn't know the cost about that now with the pipes at the stadium. And also, at the arena, as well as the repairs for the walls or whatever they got to repair downtown. But do you think with that going on, I'm sure you're probably checking other water lines downtown, probably around the stadium, whatever, throughout the city, and other pipes potentially bursting, as well as the fact that downtown, in a few weeks, you're going to have 3 football games within a week at the stadium. You've got 2 pro football games, a Christmas Eve game for the Titans, a Thursday night game, and you've also got the Music City Bowl, which is going to happen New Year's Eve. Plus, you got New Year's Day events. I mean, with all that going on, is that going to somehow impact or affect that? Or do you think you're going to be able to handle all that with what's on downtown with the water pipes bursting? And how's all that going?
That's awesome.
Always good to talk to you. Take care. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. I'm really glad you brought that up. I was going to touch on that. That goes to infrastructure that you and I have talked about before. And I know what happened with those pipes, the flooding there, and it goes to, you know, the issue maybe of just what other pipes down there that have been there for decades at some point with the growth have to be addressed. And gosh, that's expensive to get down there and replace them.
I know. Well, so Scott Potter, who's the director of Metro Water, is, I think, one of the best folks in terms of running department I know. He is very conscientious. He does a great job. He deals with these things. I think when those water pipes burst under or around Bridgestone Arena, he was down there. He was checking. He really cares about making sure this stuff works. Yeah, Eric's right. We have a lot of stuff getting ready to happen here in a couple of weeks. We got a lot of football games. We got a lot of visitors coming. We got the giant New Year's Eve celebration. Right. There's a lot of things going on.
Have you ever been under the city?
No, I try not to go down.
Okay, but you know what I'm talking about? Under there and the pipes, and I know they have robots sometimes that they put in that go through with cameras so they can observe to see if there's structural problems. I mean, think about it. Think about it. We see everything up top, but underneath the pavement, I mean, the sewers and the water lines and everything else, and some of them have been there for decades.
Well, so again, I think Eric brings up a good point. I mean, obviously this happened around Thanksgiving. I think it's always important to go back and double check, but they do have things to check. I mean, it's not like we just leave it down there and then hope for the best. I mean, they are checking these things to make sure.
But you just wonder with every new building, and I swear, every time I go downtown, I see a new building that's popped up. Well, they all have toilets and they flush, and there's sewage and there's water that has to go there. That all is added, and it's just increased, a quantum leap over what it was, and yet I don't know how much has been expanded below the surface, and it's just adding more volume to everything. And I just wonder, again, I'm no engineer, so maybe that's something we need to do a story on. Where does push come to shove where you say, okay, another skyscraper up there, or a big building, and what's the capacity down here?
Well, so
who monitors that stuff?
I mean, is it the water? Metro Water? Well, it's Metro Water. Okay. I mean, they've got to keep an eye on it. Codes department has to keep an eye on what's being built. This was a question. We had a big meeting last week in Antioch, southeast Nashville, with 12 councilmatic districts. We brought them all together, and what we were talking about was growth and development, because there's a lot of growth and development down there. And one of the big questions was infrastructure, and a lot of people were saying, you know, how can you let so many things being built down there at the same time if we're not sure if the infrastructure is ready to go?
Yeah.
And so then there's a question somebody brought up at the end. It's like maybe we should stop development until we can get the infrastructure to catch back up. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that means.
And it's all money. Do we even have impact fees for these builders?
No, we're not allowed to have impact fees.
Oh, we're not allowed to. Because, I mean, you want to build it, yeah, I guess you have to sign off on the zoning if someone wants to build a new giant hotel downtown.
Yeah, state legislature says no on impact fees for us. So, so we have to eat the cost. Mm-hmm. And so if you build a 50-story building or a 2-story building, you're adding something into the system. And the question is, how do we make sure that we don't overtax the system? So again, the folks in Southeast were saying, wait a minute, if we're having all this development, we need to have the infrastructure catch up. But then people have the rights to do what they want to with their land. So you can't necessarily say you can't do that.
Unless there's some zoning thing that restricts that. What is the thinking, if you know, and I don't know how long it's been in place, probably been for years, and I maybe should have known this, why don't they allow impact fees? I know some communities have them, but Nashville doesn't, and maybe a good reason for it. Impact fees can really restrict growth if you want it. You know,
you can use that argument, say it restricts growth. But in this case, if the developers, I mean, obviously the developers, if they have to pay an impact fee, it costs more to build.
Yes.
So if developers can make it so that they don't have to pay impact fees, they get to keep more of the profit.
So they're just lobbying lawmakers and got it passed. But I'm not sure if there's a rational reason. When a lawmaker says this, if you know lawmakers, they never give you a straight answer. It's
well,
like,
I'm a lawmaker.
You know,
so.
I guess, but it's kind of like, why'd you do this? Oh, well, we're doing it. But the real reason is because they're not going to say, oh, we're doing it because we got a bunch of money from the developers, you know, in our campaign funds. No one ever says that, but that's part of the equation. What's the real reason besides that?
I think the biggest, if I'm a developer and I want to make as much money as possible off this, and I don't want to have to worry about paying some type of a percentage impact fee to the city, because if I don't have to, I don't have to worry about it. I get to keep the profits, and the city's going to have to be responsible for it. And I guess you could argue that eventually, you know, if you build a new building, you can pay property taxes, and maybe that will take care of it as well. I'm just saying, with impact fees, it does give the city the benefit of getting some additional revenue for the whole purpose of dealing with infrastructure needs, fire department, police department, and schools. Mm-hmm. So, Nick, the way this works is that if I have 120 acres and I build 1,500 new homes on that site, that's 1,500 potential new families that all have kids. That means more police protection is needed. You have additional fire department protection that's needed in that area. You're taxing the system in terms of infrastructure, and all those kids are going to have to go to school someplace. Yeah. So the point is, if I'm going to develop something, impact fees are designed to say, okay, I'm putting this much burden on it, I'm paying you back to help the city deal with the extra burden.
Makes sense, but not allowed in Metro.
Not allowed in Metro.
Take a break on that note. Back, more of our conversation this morning with Vice Mayor Jim Shulman right after this.